He was born in Newark, New Jersey. He could have played for the United States. He could have played for Ghana. Instead, he chose a small city called Saitama, and a boyhood spent watching Urawa Red Diamonds from the stands. And he turned that choice into one of the most talked about goalkeeping stories of the entire 2026 World Cup. This is the story of Zion Suzuki, the man Japan almost lost to America, the man Juventus, Leeds, Aston Villa, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, West Ham, and Napoli are all fighting over right now, and the man whose fingertips, quite literally, kept Japan's World Cup dream alive against Brazil. Stay till the end, because what happens next in his career might spark one of the biggest debates in world football this summer. Let's start at the beginning. August 24th, 2002. Boy is born in Newark to a Ghanaian father and a Japanese mother. Most players with that kind of dual, even triple heritage end up as a diplomatic tug-of-war between federations. Suzuki's case was different, because almost immediately after birth, his family moved back to Japan and settled in Urawa in Saitama Prefecture. That single decision shaped everything that followed. He grew up a few minutes from the Urawa Reds training ground. He was practically raised on that pitch, watching senior professionals train before he was even old enough to dream of joining them. By the time he was a teenager, it was obvious this kid had something different. In 2019, at just 16 years and 5 months old, he signed a professional contract with Urawa Red Diamonds, becoming the youngest player in the club's history to do so. Think about that for a second. A 16-year-old goalkeeper being trusted with a professional deal at one of Japan's most historic clubs. That is not hype. That is a club looking at raw material and deciding this cannot wait. And here is where the story gets even more interesting, because US Soccer noticed him too. Being born on American soil made him eligible for the USMNT, and reports confirmed that US Soccer was genuinely keen to secure his allegiance. Ghana could have made a case as well, but Suzuki had already represented Japan from under 15s all the way through under 23s and the Olympic squad. His identity was already decided long before any federation came knocking. He picked Samurai Blue, and Japan ended up with a goalkeeper the Americans will be wondering about for years. Now let's talk development, because this is not a player who simply arrived. Legendary goalkeeping coach Frans Hoek, the man tasked with shaping the technical identity of Japan's long-term project known as Project 2050, a plan aimed at winning a World Cup by that year, spotted Suzuki early. Hoek has explained that the moment he saw him training as a substitute at Urawa, he knew this goalkeeper needed to leave for Europe immediately, regardless of which league would take him. That is exactly what happened. Suzuki moved to Belgium, joining Sint-Truiden, a club that has become something of a factory for exporting talent into bigger leagues. From there, in July 2024, Parma paid just over £8 million to bring him into Serie A. 2 years later, that fee looks like an absolute steal. So what does Suzuki actually look like as a goalkeeper? This is where the tactical profile gets fascinating, because he does not fit neatly into either of the two classic goalkeeping molds. Traditionally, you have shot stoppers, reflex-based goalkeepers who specialize in getting low and making saves from close range. And then you have sweeper keepers, ball-playing goalkeepers who read the game, come off their line, and act almost like an additional defender. Most elite keepers lean heavily toward one profile or the other. Suzuki does both, and does both at an elite level. Start with his shot stopping. People who have worked closely with him describe the sheer power in his hands. A former colleague who worked with Suzuki during his first season in Europe explained that when most goalkeepers dive low and get fingers to a fast-driven shot, the ball often still trickles in behind them. That almost never happens with Suzuki, because of the raw strength in his arms and wrists when he makes contact. That single detail explains a lot about his highlight reel. The double save against Roma in February, where he first denied Matthias Sol point blank, then somehow scrambled across his goal to claw away. The follow-up from Anas Salaheddin was rated as one of the saves of the season in Serie A. There was also the low save to deny Tijani Reinders for AC Milan at the San Siro, and a strong stop to deny Como's Mark Kempf from close range. Now flip to the other side of his game, the sweeper-keeper profile, and the numbers are honestly staggering. Last season in Serie A, Suzuki claimed 55 crosses, 21 more than the next closest goalkeeper in the entire league. Across Europe's top 5 leagues, only Joan Garcia, who has since been snapped up by Barcelona, claimed more crosses than him. Outside of his own penalty box, Suzuki ranked second in the whole of Serie A for what is called sweeping actions, essentially rushing out to intercept through balls before they even become a threat. That is not a goalkeeper reacting to danger. That is a goalkeeper controlling space before danger even arrives.
Of course, no honest analysis skips the flaws, and Suzuki has one very clear one. His aggressive, high-risk approach to claiming crosses led to 9 dropped catches last season, the highest total of any goalkeeper in Serie A. That is the trade-off. When you are the most proactive goalkeeper in the league, for coming off your line, you are also going to be the one most exposed when the timing goes wrong. It is a young goalkeeper still calibrating the risk, but it is a very honest, very human flaw. And it is exactly the kind of detail scouts flag before a major transfer. Now, let's get into the World Cup, because this tournament changed everything for him. Suzuki entered the 2026 World Cup as Japan's undisputed number 1, ahead of Keisuke Osako and Tomoki Hayakawa. But he entered it with real doubt hanging over him. Back in November 2025, he suffered a broken bone in his left hand during a match against AC Milan and had to undergo surgery. For a goalkeeper, a hand injury is about as serious as it gets. Yet he began rehab just 3 days after the operation, focusing on leg work and every part of goalkeeping that did not depend on that hand. And by March, he was back on Parma's active roster, helping pull the club away from relegation trouble. That recovery timeline alone tells you everything about his mentality. Then came June 14th, Dallas Stadium, Japan's World Cup opener against the Netherlands. This was Suzuki's first ever World Cup match, and he delivered one of the standout individual performances of the group stage. In just the 3rd minute, he parried away a stinging effort from Daniel Milan to settle his team's nerves immediately. He went on to make 4 big saves in total, as Japan came back twice to secure a 2-2 land draw against one of the tournament favorites. It was the kind of announcement to the football world that no highlight reel can fully replicate, because it happened on the biggest stage that exists in this sport. Japan followed that up with a comfortable 4-0 win over Tunisia, where Suzuki was barely tested, but still impressed with his distribution out of the back. A small but telling detail for a goalkeeper being scouted by possession-based Premier League sides. Japan finished the group in second place, behind Sweden, ahead of Tunisia, and advanced to the round of 32 to face five-time champions Brazil in Houston. This is where the tournament nearly became legendary for Japan, and where Suzuki delivered arguably his biggest moment yet. Kaishu Sano put Japan ahead in the 29th minute with a brilliant strike after stealing possession in midfield. For long stretches, Japan looked like they were about to record their first ever World Cup knockout stage win. Then, 7 minutes into the second half, Suzuki produced a goal line save to deny Brazil an equalizer that by all accounts should have gone in. Later, Vinicius Jr. surged into the box, nutmegged a defender, and fired a left-footed shot that Suzuki got enough on to deflect into the post. These were world-class interventions against one of the most talented attacking teams on the planet. But football, as it often does, delivered heartbreak. Casemiro equalized with a header in the 56th minute. And then, in the 6th minute of stoppage time, substitute Gabriel Martinelli struck a low right-footed finish that squeezed in off the post to complete a 2-1 comeback win for Brazil. Japan's World Cup ended in the round of 32, again, for what feels like the 100th heartbreaking near miss in this nation's history. Brazil manager Carlo Ancelotti said his side had imagined a challenge, but got a team that made it really tough for them. Crediting Japan's game plan directly, Brazilian star Matheus Cunha echoed the same praise after the final whistle. Suzuki himself said the concession shouldn't have happened, but that Japan would use the pain as fuel heading into the next cycle. That single response tells you exactly who this player is. Not a goalkeeper looking for excuses, but one already thinking about the next 4 years. Now, here is where things get statistically fascinating. Across the tenement, Suzuki established himself as one of the most active, most proactive goalkeepers at the entire World Cup, ranking among the leaders for crosses, claimed, and defensive actions outside his box. Numbers that mirror exactly what he had already been doing at club level in Serie A. This was not a lucky, one-off tournament. This was a continuation of a statistical trend that has been building for 2 full seasons, and that consistency is exactly why his transfer situation has exploded into one of the biggest sagas of the summer. Before the World Cup even started, Suzuki was already a name being monitored by Manchester United, West Ham, Bayern Munich, and Napoli, but his performances in North America turned quiet, scouting interest into an outright transfer war. Parma have set a valuation of around 30 million euros, roughly 26 million pounds, for a player they paid just over 8 million pounds for 2 years ago. There is also a release clause reportedly set at around 40 million euros, acting as a ceiling on any negotiation. Leeds United, newly promoted back to the Premier League, have emerged as the most aggressive suitor. Multiple reports claim Leeds have already reached personal terms with Suzuki's camp on a long-term contract, running as far as 2031, and that he has been promised the undisputed #1 shirt at Elland Road. with some reports even suggesting he could line up alongside fellow Japan international Ao Tanaka. Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspur are also reportedly in the race, with Villa needing a long-term successor plan in their goalkeeping department, and Juventus were briefly linked before reportedly stepping back due to the asking price, with their football directors instead turning attention toward Emiliano Martinez and Guglielmo Vicario for their own goalkeeping situation. Other reporting also names Chelsea and West Ham as long-term admirers dating back to before the tournament even began. So here is the situation as it stands. A 23-year-old goalkeeper, born in America, raised in Japan, developed in Belgium, proven in Italy, and now the subject of a genuine Premier League bidding war, all off the back of a World Cup where his own country was eliminated in the very first knockout round. That is an incredible career trajectory for someone who is, by goalkeeping standards, still practically a teenager in terms of experience. Now, let's get into the part of this video that I guarantee will divide the comment section. Is Zaya Suzuki actually ready for the Premier League right now? Or is this transfer hype getting dangerously ahead of the player's actual level? On one hand, you have a goalkeeper who statistically outperforms almost every keeper in Serie for aggressive sweeping and crosses claimed, who delivered career-defining saves against the Netherlands and Brazil on the world's biggest stage, and who has been personally tracked by elite goalkeeping minds like Frans Hoek since he was a teenager. On the other hand, whose high-risk positioning has not yet been fully tested against the relentless physicality and aerial bombardment of English football, and who Leeds United, a newly promoted club still adjusting to the top flight, may be rushing into a £30 million gamble purely off World Cup momentum rather than a full body of sustained club evidence. So, I want to know what you think. Is Zion Suzuki the long-term successor? Japan has been building toward under Project Arling Wuling, a genuinely elite, modern sweeper-keeper, ready to anchor a Premier League defense for the next decade. Or is this the classic case of a World Cup breakout, getting massively overvalued in a chaotic summer transfer market, destined to struggle the moment English strikers start targeting his aggressive positioning? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me which Premier League club you think is the right destination. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe, because this transfer saga is only just getting started, and I will be covering every twist as it happens.